Hello everybody, my name is Zeke. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated books for the fall. You might say this is a pretty standard video for most. I think a lot of people do kind of anticipated reads, talk about what they're excited to read. But for me, this is very important. This is very new. This is very special because I literally never know when new books are coming out, and it's a problem. I feel like I miss so much and I never read new releases. And part of that is because I don't want to buy hardcover books. But another thing is I literally just never know what's going on. I never know what's coming out until it's too late, which is a problem I'm seeking to amend. So I kind of did my own research for once in my life, stopped being lazy, and decided to actually get on that and look up some books I could be interested in coming out in like September, October, November. And I had some success. I feel like it's still, I don't know where people are getting this information from. I would love to know. I had a hard time kind of just like finding a place where I could just look at a good list of books that are coming out that I would actually care about. But that also could 100% and probably is just me being extremely picky with what I want to read. So that's another problem for another day. But for now, I have 7 books I'm going to talk about, most of them coming out on September 26th, which is a funny coincidence. I think 4 out of the 7 are coming out on the same day, so that'll be a problem. And does this mean that I will actually read any of these books when they come out? Probably not, because I am a mood reader. I will read things whenever I just see them. If I see a book I've seen before, doesn't matter if I've like never actually been interested in reading it, I'll pick it up. So I have no idea when I'm ever gonna read these, but they're added to my TBR, and I think I'm gonna make it like a goal for myself. Keep me to this, I'm saying it right now. Rest of the year, I need to read at least 2 out of the 7 of these books. I need to actually get them and read them before the end of the year. So that's the goal. Hopefully this will inspire me to do that. And also I just want to read more new releases so I'm more informed on the goings on of the world. And so I think this is a good first step. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about, and just as a preface, I'm not going to go into extreme detail with any of these. First of all, because I like going to my books not blind, but not knowing an obscene amount of information other than like the blurb, and also because they're not released yet, so there's not like a lot of information out about them. But the first book I'm excited for, is Rouge by Mona Wad. Now, did I like either of the other Mona Wad books I read? No. Did not really like Bunny, did not really like All's Well. And I just feel like I'm wrong. Like, that's why I continue to do this. I feel like I get it. Like, I get it. And I want to enjoy it. And I feel like just if I had like the right angle or the right book from her, I would just really enjoy it. So even though like the past 2 books I just thought were kind of fine, I really just have a feeling that one of these days I'm going to read a Mona Wad book, and it's really going to do it for me. And so hopefully this is it. From what I read, this is kind of about this girl who works in like a dress shop, and her mother passes away, and she ends up going to like this like cult spa kind of thing. And it's probably, I think it's about like youth, it's about beauty, it's about like mother-daughter relationships. And I feel like it'll be interesting. That sounds like a very interesting setting for weird things to go on, as they always do in Mona Wad books. So I just kind of want to see how this goes. I think this is probably the one I'm most anticipating, the one I think I will definitely try to pick up this year, just because I really need to make a decision as to whether I need to stop reading Mona Wad books or if I should keep going, because I'm on the cusp. Like, I feel like I'm so close to enjoying them, and then there's always something, and I'm just hoping that this will be the one. Okay, I didn't mention it, but Rouge comes out September 12th. I'm gonna do a better job of that, of actually saying when they come out. But the next 4 books I'm gonna talk about all come out on September 26th, which, as I said, very funny. Don't know what's so special about September 26th, why there's so many books that I'm interested in coming out that day, but there are. So the first one I want to talk about is The Fragile Threads of Power by V. Schwab. And okay, first of all, I hate this title. I think it's just clunky to me. I don't know if that's an opinion many people share, but if you don't know, this is kind of a follow-up trilogy. I think it's going to be a trilogy to the Darker Shade of Magic series that V. Schwab is very well known for. I've read a lot of V. Schwab books. I think I've read all of her like adult books. I've read Darker Shade of Magic, like the Vicious Villains duology, and also The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And it's been a while though. Like, I think the last book I read from her was probably 2020. So I don't know, and I really enjoyed all of them when I read them at the time, some more than others obviously, but I am just really curious to see if I will still enjoy her writing, having read so much more since then, and my tastes have probably changed. I'm just really curious. And also, I like don't remember basically anything about the Darker Shade of Magic. Like, I remember the general ideas, I remember kind of the overarching 3-book plot, and like some of the characters, but I don't remember like a lot about it. So hopefully that won't be a problem when I'm reading this. What is it actually about? So if you don't know, this series takes place in a world or in a kind of setting where there's 4 versions of London: white London, black London, gray London, and red London. And some of them have magic, some of them don't. They're all different in different ways. And this new series is going to tackle some old characters, some new characters. I think in White London, there's like this like new characters kind of rising to power, and there's like stuff with like religion and ambition that should be fun. And there's also a new character that's like I think one of the main characters who we'd never met before. So I just want to see how it's going to end up comparing to the first trilogy, which I really loved, and hopefully it'll be good, and hopefully I'll want to continue the trilogy after I read the first book. The next book I want to talk about, I've literally never heard of the author or the book before. It's called Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang, and it's kind of about like this not post-apocalyptic, I love saying that word, but that's not actually what it is. It's like this kind of, there's like some sort of catastrophe going on in the world. There are lots of problems going on, and it's about this young chef who kind of leaves her life in the city as a chef to go to this like idealistic community colony that's kind of an escape for everything going on, and she's kind of adjusting to life there. And I don't know a lot about like what the actual plot will be like beyond that, but I'm assuming it's going to be about like privilege and like what it means to like abandon the world like that and go to this place where everything is so nice. But I'm assuming that not everything is so nice and there's something else going on. That would probably be my guess for where the story will end up going. But it just sounded like an interesting premise. I like the idea of reading from the perspective of a chef, having just watched The Bear recently, great TV show, and I'm just that kind of hooked me, but also then actually reading the synopsis, it sounds kind of interesting. And I've been liking like these kind of post-apocalyptic, even though this isn't exactly that, I've been reading a lot of those recently, so I'd like to read something maybe a little similar that'll kind of expand beyond that and be a little different as well. So I'm excited for that, also September 26th. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually a short story collection. I've been reading a lot of short story collections this year, really enjoying the experience, even if every single one of them haven't been incredible. Most of them have gone pretty well, and I enjoy reading short stories. I think there's something to be said for getting to read shorter works of fiction that can really just explore an idea really well. You know what a short story is, I don't have to explain it to you. But this is salvaged by, I'm gonna probably butcher this name, so I'm very sorry about that, ofhini Vara, also out September 26th. And this is kind of, I don't know a lot about the individual stories, obviously, and I don't want to, but it's about, from the synopsis, it's about like a lot of the stories are about people searching for meaning through relationships with others. And it kind of explained some of the stories in brief little clues in the synopsis that just seem interesting. Seems like a lot of different types of relationships, a lot of weird scenarios, and I'm just excited to get maybe a more literary short story collection, because I feel like most of the short stories I read are speculative fiction in some way, and I kind of want to expand beyond that. because I always want to broaden my reading. So that just sounded interesting. I'm excited for that. September 26th once again. And the last September 26th book is The Hexologist by Josiah Bancroft. Now, Josiah Bancroft wrote a very interesting series called the Senlin Ascend series. I don't know if that's the actual name of the series. That's the first book, at least, which I read and had a very mixed time with. I absolutely loved so much of it, but the lows were very low. The last book I absolutely hated. Okay, that's a little strong. I didn't hate it. There were some elements I liked, but just the direction the story went by the end, I was so disappointed. And it just really let me down. But like the third book in that series is one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. So it's kind of like this really weird relationship I have with this series and with this author. And I'm just excited to see what he does next because of those high points, and hopefully he'll stick the landing this time. So this book is the first book in a new series, kind of a little vague on the plot, but it's about like this husband and wife duo, very similar to Senlin Ascends, except this time the wife doesn't get separated and kind of ignored for the entire series. And so we are following them. They kind of solve various strange problems around this city. And I think the book kind of kicks off with them being invited to solve this problem for the king. And it seems like it's gonna be very strange. It seems like there's gonna be like hidden twists and turns along the way, especially if it's a series. Like there's gonna be a lot going on. I assume this is just the starting point, especially considering Senlin Ascends, which starts kind of small, I would say, and kind of builds a lot from there. And so I'm just excited for this new experience, and hopefully it'll go better than last time. But also I think he has really good ideas, and I'm very excited to see how this kind of plays out, because honestly, if I'm being honest, like the plot itself, just reading that like doesn't catch my attention completely, but I assume he'll do something interesting with it, so I'm excited for that. I have two more books to talk about. First is the one I'm least sure about, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I'll like this a little. It'll really depend on what direction it takes, but that's The Unmaking of Jane by Adrienne Young, coming out on October 17th. This seems like it could either be really good or really not good for me. It's about like a family curse. This girl's mother has disappeared way in the past, and another event happens which kind of leads her to want to find out more, and she goes and does that, and there's a mention of her traveling through doors to other places, which is very interesting and a kind of idea in speculative fiction that I enjoy reading, and would very much like to see done well. And the thing about this, though, is there are hints in the synopsis that it could be very romance leading, which for me is not what I really want to read in my fantasy books. I'm okay with a little bit, but I don't want this to be a romance book with fantasy elements, and that's what I'm afraid of, and I don't really know enough whether to say it'll lean more romance or fantasy. And if it leans more romance, I probably just won't read it. Like, I'll look into it once it comes out, and if it leans more, like, it's just not gonna be for me, and I'm gonna avoid it because I know that. But if it leans more fantasy, it doesn't seem like it'll be like a super, it's not like something I feel like I've never heard of before. It doesn't seem like very new or whatever, but I feel like it could be very interesting to read and just has a lot of ideas that I like. And so hopefully it'll be fantasy leaning for me, and I will read it and enjoy it in the future. Speaking of the future, the last book I want to read comes out on November 7th, and it's called The Future by Naomi Alderman. And this book is kind of about like this like the taking down of like the tech world and the billionaire class in the tech world by like a ragtag group of individuals, and there's not a lot of information beyond that once again, but it just is something that is interesting to me. I want to read a story about that. It really reminded me of I don't know if you know the show Mr. Robot from like the 2015 through 2019. I'm very late to that. I started watching it recently. I've just finished season 2, and it's very good, and it's very kind of similar, like taking down this big company and this kind of reminded me of that and sounded interesting. And this is also something I'll wait probably a little to hear a little more about, and see if the reviews are good before I actually read it, just because the synopsis is kind of so vague. But I'm sure as we get closer, we'll get more information, and when it comes out, I'll have more information to base whether I actually end up reading it or not. But it does sound interesting. I want to read more books about like technology, whatever, not something I read often. Would be good to expand my horizons. Okay, so those are my fall anticipated books. Hopefully this will encourage me to continue making these types of videos like once a season, just so I'm kind of in the loop as to books that I'm excited for that are coming out, and don't find out months after they come out that they are out. And so I'm excited to see how this goes. Maybe I'll do like a little update. If I end up reading all of these, if I end up reading at least 5, I think I'll do an update and see if it was worth it to do this, and see if the books I anticipated were actually good. That would be an interesting video to do. I'll think about that. But for now, I don't know if I'm ever gonna do that. As I said, 2 books. 2 books is the goal for now, and also hopefully continuing with this in the future, with the winter, spring, summer, various seasons that happen in the year. And so that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing about these books if you've never heard about them, kind of hearing about what I'm interested in this coming season, if that is something you're interested in. And I hope that if you enjoyed this video, you like, comment, or subscribe if you want. I would really appreciate it. I try to post videos once a week, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, and I will see you in the next one.